Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. What happens when 7 men stand face to face against 300 women? Most people laugh. Some say, it's impossible. Others whisper, there's no chance. Think about it. What do odds really mean? When someone says, your chances are 1 in 100. What are they really saying? They're telling you that statistically, logically, mathematically, you don't stand a chance? But let me ask you something. Since when did human greatness ever obey statistics? Since when did courage, resilience, and faith bow down to a calculator? History is filled with stories where odds were stacked so high that the world expected only one outcome: defeat. Yet what happened? The few who refused to be counted out rewrote the story. The power of odds doesn't lie in the numbers themselves. It lies in how you respond to them. Imagine you are one of those 7 men standing in front of 300 women. The world is already laughing, shaking its head, saying, this is over before it even begins. But deep inside, you know something they don't. You know that odds are nothing but a challenge dressed up in numbers. You know that statistics can predict many things, but they can never measure heart, discipline, or the unshakable will of a fighter. Why is that so powerful? Because the odds are meant to break the weak, but they exist to reveal the strong. Let me repeat that. The odds are not there to stop you. They are there to show the world who you really are when everything is against you. Without odds, there is no glory. Without resistance, there is no greatness. Without being outnumbered, there is no chance to rise above. Now, here's the educational part. Psychology teaches us something fascinating. When humans face overwhelming odds, the average mind shuts down, but the extraordinary mind wakes up. It's called the fight or flight response. Most people choose flight, they run. But a rare few feel something else awaken inside them. Their senses sharpen. Their courage multiplies. Their determination becomes a weapon. That's why a small force can sometimes outlast and outperform a larger one, because their mental state has shifted into overdrive. So when you hear 7 against 300, don't just think numbers, think energy. Numbers are external, but energy, spirit, and focus are internal. And internal power always decides the outcome more than external advantage. Isn't it true? Haven't you seen students who had fewer resources but studied harder and topped exams against those who had everything handed to them? Haven't you seen entrepreneurs with almost no money create empires while others with all the funding in the world collapsed? That's the power of odds. It filters out those who rely only on circumstances and highlights those who rely on character. Here's the most important lesson: odds are not barriers, they are invitations. They invite you to step into the arena of the impossible. They whisper, are you willing to try even when you're told you can't win? And if you say yes, you step into the rarest group of people, the risk takers, the history makers, the warriors of destiny. Think about the Spartans at Thermopylae, 300 men standing against an army of thousands. Think about scientists who were laughed at for their crazy ideas, only to change the world with their discoveries. Think about athletes who were told they'd never recover from injuries, only to come back stronger and win gold. What do these stories have in common? The odds said no, but the heart said yes. And every time the heart said yes, history was forced to listen. Here's the truth: most people use odds as an excuse. They say, it's too hard, it's too risky. The numbers are against me. But winners use odds as fuel. Winners look at the impossible and say, perfect, now I get to prove myself? Isn't that a completely different mindset? The weak see odds as walls. The strong see odds as stepping stones. And remember, odds are never permanent. What looks like 7 vs 300 today can become 300 vs 7 tomorrow if the smaller group plays smarter, trains harder, and believes stronger. Numbers can change, circumstances can change. But the power of your belief, that's the constant. That's the weapon that no statistic can defeat. So when life throws impossible odds at you, don't panic, don't shrink, smile at them. Say to yourself, so this is the test. This is the fire I must walk through to earn my victory. Because every great achievement you admire today was born out of impossible odds yesterday. Remember this line and carve it into your heart. Odds are not there to scare you. They are there to prepare you. The harder the challenge, the stronger you become. The bigger the mountain, the greater the view from the top. The tougher the battle, the sweeter the victory. So the next time someone says, the odds are against you, don't argue, don't explain. Just smile and think to yourself, good, because that means the victory will be unforgettable. Strength beyond numbers. What is strength really? Is it the size of your army, the weight you can carry, the money you can count? Or is strength something far deeper, something invisible to the eye but undeniable to the soul? Too many people believe that power belongs only to the majority, to the bigger side, to the one with more hands raised in the fight. But history proves again and again, numbers are not the same as strength. 7 men standing shoulder to shoulder with one vision are more dangerous than 300 who are confused, divided, or uncertain. Why? Because strength is not measured by quantity, it is measured by quality. Numbers can fill space, but true strength fills hearts? Think about this in education and science. One determined researcher working alone in a small lab can achieve breakthroughs that thousands of others, distracted and divided, could never imagine. One teacher with passion can inspire generations, while entire institutions filled with indifferent instructors may produce nothing but mediocrity. So tell me, does strength come from numbers, or does it come from the fire of commitment? When 7 men are united in purpose, they can become like steel. Their actions sharpen one another. Their courage multiplies. Their faith reinforces itself. Meanwhile, 300 without unity are like scattered sand, plenty in number, but powerless in form. You can have a sea of people, but if they lack vision, they collapse under their own weight. You can have a handful of people, but if they carry discipline, belief, and loyalty, they can move mountains. This is why armies train not only the body but the mind, because 1,000 soldiers who march without clarity are weaker than 10 who march with conviction. Numbers may intimidate at first glance, but true power lies in those who understand why they are fighting. Purpose is the invisible muscle that no statistic can measure, and when purpose burns hot, strength rises beyond numbers. Psychology explains this through the principle of social cohesion. When individuals trust one another, believe in one another, and share the same vision, their collective output is multiplied. This is why a small team of committed people can outperform a large group where trust is absent. Haven't you seen companies where hundreds of employees work but produce nothing groundbreaking, while a startup with 5 people changes the entire industry? That is strength beyond numbers. Look at nature. Lions do not hunt in herds of 300. They hunt in groups of 3, 4, or 5. Why? Because their strength comes from precision, coordination, and courage, not from simply outnumbering the prey. An eagle flies alone, yet no one doubts its dominance in the sky. The oak tree stands tall and solitary, yet no storm can break it easily. Nature itself whispers to us, strength is not about how many, but about how much. Let's apply this to life. You might be just one student in a class of 300. You might feel invisible, lost, outnumbered. But if you decide to focus, to work harder, to rise above distractions, you can stand out, you can lead, you can win scholarships, you can change your destiny. Strength is not about how many are around you, it's about what you choose to become within you. Isn't that true? You might be a single entrepreneur in a crowded market where 300 others are already selling what you dream to create. But if your vision is clearer, your service is sharper, your dedication is stronger, you will outlast them. You will rise above them. You will prove that one with unshakable focus is greater than many with half-hearted effort. Even in relationships and communities, this truth shines. A small circle of true friends gives you more strength than hundreds of acquaintances who disappear when life gets hard. One mentor who believes in you is worth more than a crowd of critics who doubt you. Quality always outweighs quantity because when storms come, only the strong remain standing. Strength beyond numbers also teaches us discipline. If you believe you need a crowd to feel powerful, you will always depend on others. But if you learn to stand firm even when you are alone, then you become unstoppable. That's why spiritual leaders, thinkers, and innovators often began alone, rejected, doubted. But they carried something stronger than approval. They carried conviction. And conviction is the kind of strength that no number can overpower. So what happens when 7 men face 300 women? On paper, it looks like defeat. But if those 7 carry the discipline of warriors, the unity of brothers, and the clarity of a shared mission, then suddenly, the number 300 doesn't look so frightening. Because strength is not about filling the battlefield with bodies, it's about filling it with spirit. And spirit is contagious. It spreads like fire, it burns through fear, it transforms weakness into force. In every classroom, in every business, in every dream, you will face moments when the numbers seem against you. You will feel outnumbered, overlooked, overshadowed. But ask yourself, what matters more, the number around you or the strength within you? What matters more, the size of your opposition or the size of your determination? Every time, the answer is clear: strength beyond numbers wins. So, let the world count heads, let them compare sizes, let them calculate probabilities. You focus on building strength, the kind that can't be measured, the kind that can't be bought, the kind that grows in silence and roars when tested. Because that is the strength that bends odds, breaks barriers, and writes history. Mindset over might. What is might? Muscles, weapons, money, armies, power on paper. And what is mindset? Belief, focus, discipline, strategy, and the courage to keep going when everything says stop. Which one do you think wins more often? Might or mindset? You might say, surely might. But history, psychology, and even your own life whisper a different truth. Mindset is the true ruler, not might. You can have the biggest muscles, the loudest voice, the fanciest equipment, but if your mindset is weak, you will crumble the moment pressure hits. On the other hand, you can have very little in your hands, but if your mindset is unbreakable, you will shock the world. Isn't it true? Haven't you seen students with fewer resources outperform geniuses because they refuse to quit? Haven't you seen athletes with smaller builds crush stronger opponents because their mental toughness was unmatched? Think of it, 7 men versus 300 women. Who has the might? Obviously the 300. But who can control the outcome? The ones with the stronger mindset. Because numbers don't think, muscles don't plan. Raw force doesn't lead, the mind does. If the mind gives up, the body follows. If the mind fights, the body obeys. That's why mindset is greater than might. Psychologists call this mental resilience. It is the ability to keep pushing even when the odds, the pain, and the circumstances scream at you to quit. This is why elite soldiers are trained not just in weapons but in mental endurance. Because a soldier without resilience is just muscle waiting to collapse. But a soldier with resilience is a weapon on his own. Think about education again. 2 students walk into an exam. One has studied less but believes, I can handle this, I'll stay calm, I'll think through every question. The other has studied more but panics, doubts, and loses focus. Who wins? The one with the mindset. That's the power of belief over brawn, clarity over chaos, calmness over fear. Sports give us endless examples. A fighter steps into the ring against an opponent twice his size. The crowd already knows the result, right? They cheer for the bigger fighter, the one with more might. But what happens when the smaller one refuses to be intimidated? When he dodges, counters, outthinks, and refuses to quit, the crowd gasps. Suddenly might looks clumsy, and mindset looks like magic. That's when you realize physical strength can be measured in pounds, but mental strength cannot be measured at all. Let's look at science. Every great invention you enjoy today, electricity, airplanes, computers, was once declared impossible. The might of society said no. The majority said no. But a few minds said yes. They were laughed at, rejected, underestimated, yet mindset kept them alive. And eventually, their mindset became the might that powered the entire world. Even in war, this truth shines. Armies with fewer men but greater strategy have defeated larger ones again and again. Why? Because mindset creates tactics, and tactics overcome brute force. 1,000 swords are useless if they are swung without vision. 10 swords with the right plan can shatter an empire. Isn't that the same in your life? You don't always need more. You need to think better, believe harder, and refuse to surrender. Mindset also determines how you see failure. A person with only might sees failure as the end. They lose once and collapse. But a person with mindset sees failure as a lesson, a stepping stone, a rehearsal for success. They lose 10 times and still rise for the 11th. Tell me, who is more dangerous, the one who falls and stays down or the one who falls and rises every time? That is why mindset always wins in the long game. Now let's talk about everyday life. You want to build a career. The might of competition is huge. Millions of others applying for the same jobs, thousands starting the same businesses. If you rely only on resources, you'll drown. But if your mindset says, I will outwork, outlearn, and outlast, suddenly you stand out. Because while others surrender to competition, you turn it into motivation. Or imagine relationships. Some people believe having wealth, beauty, or status might is enough to keep love alive. But without the mindset of respect, patience, and commitment, what happens? Everything falls apart. Meanwhile, those who may not have much on the outside but carry loyalty, care, and strength in their mindset, they build bonds that last a lifetime. Mindset over might is also about vision. Muscles can lift heavy loads, but vision lifts entire generations. Money can build tall buildings, but vision builds nations. Armies can conquer land, but vision conquers time. And vision comes only from a strong, disciplined mindset. That's why leaders are remembered. Not for their might, but for their mind. So when we look at 7 men against 300 women, the question is not, who has more? The question is, who believes more? Who stays calm under chaos?
Who adapts faster?
Who turns fear into fuel? Because the group that controls their mindset controls the battlefield, no matter the numbers. And that's the lesson you must take. When the world tries to intimidate you with size, wealth, or statistics, remind yourself, mindset is my greatest weapon. If I master my mind, I master the game. Because no matter how powerful the opponent, if their mindset breaks, they are finished. And no matter how small you appear, if your mindset stays solid, you are unstoppable. Unity and strategy, what is more powerful? 300 people walking in different directions or 7 people walking as one? Numbers can impress the eye, but unity impresses destiny? Isn't it true? If you take 300 voices shouting at once without rhythm, without coordination, you get nothing but noise. But 7 voices shouting in harmony become a battle cry that shakes the earth. Unity is not just being together physically. Unity is about hearts beating in sync, minds aligned with a shared vision, actions moving with trust. Without unity, even the largest group collapses into weakness. With unity, even the smallest group transforms into a storm of strength. Haven't you seen this in sports? A team full of star players but no teamwork. What happens? They lose to a group of average players who are united, disciplined, and strategic. That's the power of unity over numbers. But unity alone is not enough. It must be paired with strategy. Imagine 7 men standing against 300 women. If the 7 simply rush in with blind courage, they'll be crushed by numbers. But if they stay united and craft a strategy, every step, every move, every strike calculated, suddenly the impossible starts to look possible. Because strategy multiplies the impact of unity. Let's explore this deeper. In history, small forces have repeatedly defeated larger ones because of strategy. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the Viet Cong against mighty armies, freedom fighters against empires. All of them knew one truth: when united, when disciplined, when led by strategy, the few can humble the many. Isn't that powerful? Psychology explains why unity matters so much. When individuals trust each other, they reduce fear and increase confidence. A lone fighter might hesitate, but when standing with brothers or sisters, courage multiplies. Neuroscience calls this social synchronization. Our brains are wired to fight harder, think clearer, and endure longer when we feel supported. That's why unity is not just emotional, it's biological. We are literally stronger together. Now, strategy, what is it really? It is the art of turning weakness into strength, disadvantage into opportunity. It's using the terrain, the timing, the mindset of the opponent to your advantage. Strategy means you don't fight harder, you fight smarter. And when unity and strategy combine, miracles happen. Think about business. Hundreds of companies may enter a market, but the ones who win are not always the biggest. They are the ones with a clear strategy and a united team. A startup with 7 united people can crush a corporation with 300 confused employees. Why? Because vision without division is unstoppable. Or think about education. A class of 300 may seem intimidating, but if 7 students form a united study group, sharing notes, teaching each other, staying disciplined, their results will often outshine the rest. Unity allows individuals to rise above their limits, and when combined with the strategy of smart preparation, they turn into achievers who lead the way. Even in families and communities, unity and strategy build legacies. A divided family, no matter how wealthy, falls apart. But a united family, even with little, grows stronger across generations. Add strategy, financial planning, education, discipline, and they not only survive, they thrive. Doesn't that show you how unity and strategy are the secret weapons of life? Think about nature again. Ants are tiny, fragile, weak alone, but united with strategy, they carry objects many times their size, build colonies stronger than storms, and defend against threats much larger than them. Birds flying in formation save energy by supporting one another. Wolves hunt in packs, using strategy to take down prey much bigger than themselves. Nature keeps telling us, unity and strategy are survival, success, and victory. Now, let's return to 7 versus 300. The 300 may start with confidence, believing numbers alone guarantee success. But what if they are not united? What if some hesitate, some push forward, some fall back? Chaos begins to spread. Meanwhile, the 7 stand shoulder to shoulder, eyes locked, breath steady, hearts synchronized. Every move they make is not random, it's calculated. One distracts, one attacks, one defends. One creates opportunity. Together, they function like one body with many parts. Who do you think has the real advantage then? This is the truth. Unity transforms addition into multiplication. 7 individuals alone are just 7, but 7 united with strategy are not 7, they are 7,700, sometimes even more powerful than 300 divided souls. Because unity multiplies force and strategy multiplies impact. Think about your own life. Maybe you feel outnumbered by problems, debts, exams, competitors, critics. But if you unite your energy, focus all of yourself into one clear mission, and if you add strategy, planning, timing, smart effort, you will overcome. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the right things in unity with your purpose. That's how victories are built. And here's something most people forget. Unity also destroys fear. Alone, fear whispers loud. But united, fear shrinks. Haven't you noticed how you feel braver when you're not alone? That's the psychological weapon of unity. It silences doubt and awakens courage. And when strategy joins in, courage turns into victory. So remember, numbers can fail, resources can vanish, power can fade. But unity with strategy, that is eternal, that is unbreakable. That is how the few defeat the many, how the weak overthrow the strong, how 7 can stand against 300 and say, we are not outnumbered, we are united, and united we are unbeatable. Resilience under pressure. Pressure, what does it do? It can crush you or it can shape you. It can make you collapse or it can make you unbreakable. Pressure is the great test of character. And resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, to stumble without falling, to suffer without surrendering, is the secret weapon that separates champions from quitters. When 7 men stand against 300 women, what is the greatest weapon they must carry? Not just strength, not just courage, resilience. Because under that kind of pressure, when the odds tower over you, only resilience keeps your heart steady and your mind sharp. Without it, fear will swallow you whole. With it, fear becomes fuel. Think about it scientifically. When we face pressure, our body releases stress hormones. For some, this causes panic, trembling, paralysis. But for those with resilience, that same stress sharpens focus, increases energy, and ignites survival instincts. Isn't that amazing? The same situation that breaks one person builds another. What makes the difference? Resilience. History is full of lessons about resilience under pressure. Look at Thomas Edison. He failed not once, not 10 times, but thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Imagine the pressure, investors doubting him, society mocking him, failure after failure. Many would have given up, but Edison's resilience said, each failure teaches me something new, and because of that mindset, he succeeded where others quit. Or think about Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years. The pressure to give up, to surrender, to accept defeat, it was enormous. Yet he remained resilient. His spirit was never crushed. And when he walked out, he didn't just free himself, he inspired a nation. That's the power of resilience under pressure. Even in sports, the most legendary moments happen under pressure. A boxer knocked down in the first rounds, bloodied and tired. What makes him rise again? Resilience. A football team behind in the final minutes, the crowd against them. What makes them keep pushing? Resilience. It's not the absence of pain, it's the refusal to let pain decide the outcome. Now let's bring it to everyday life. A student under pressure to pass exams, to perform, to prove themselves. Do they collapse or do they push harder, stay calm, focus, and rise above? That's resilience. An entrepreneur facing rejection after rejection. Investors slamming doors, competitors laughing. Do they stop or do they say, every no brings me closer to my yes? That's resilience. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the training ground. Just like coal under pressure becomes diamond, humans under pressure become champions if they refuse to break. That's why resilience matters more than talent, more than luck, more than resources. Talent without resilience quits under pressure. Luck without resilience vanishes when storms arrive. But resilience without anything else still survives, still stands, still wins. Psychology calls it grit, the passion and perseverance to keep going despite obstacles. Studies show that grit predicts success more than intelligence or wealth. Why? Because resilience turns effort into mastery. Resilience keeps you practicing when others stop. Resilience keeps you fighting when others walk away. Resilience keeps you believing when others lose hope. Isn't that the real superpower? Imagine those 7 men again. The pressure is unbearable. 300 against them. The sound of footsteps, the fear in the air. Their bodies scream, run. Their minds whisper, you can't win. But resilience shouts louder, stand your ground. Hold the line, do not quit. That voice is what keeps them moving forward when logic says it's over. And that's what resilience does in your life too. It silences the voice of surrender and amplifies the voice of victory. Look at nature. The bamboo tree takes years of pressure underground before it breaks the surface. For a long time, you see nothing and people think it's dead. But in reality, it's growing roots, preparing, strengthening, and then one day, it shoots up taller and faster than anyone imagined. Resilience under pressure built that growth. Isn't that exactly how your dreams work? They might take years, struggles, failures, pressure, but if you stay resilient, one day you will rise so fast the world will be shocked. Even steel is tested by fire, ships are tested by storms, and humans are tested by pressure. You cannot become strong without being pressed, challenged, stretched. That's why life puts pressure on you, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. Pressure asks, are you serious? Do you really want this? Are you willing to fight for it? And resilience is your answer. Yes. I will not give up. Pressure also builds creativity. When easy paths are blocked, resilient people find new ways, smarter strategies, bolder solutions. Haven't you noticed how some of the best ideas come when your back is against the wall? That's resilience turning pressure into power. So remember, resilience is not about never falling. It's about rising every time you fall. It's not about never crying. It's about wiping your tears and pushing forward anyway. It's not about never feeling fear. It's about acting with courage even when fear screams inside. Resilience under pressure makes 7 men face 300 and still believe in victory. Resilience under pressure makes ordinary people do extraordinary things. Resilience under pressure makes you unstoppable, unshakable, unforgettable. And every time you choose not to break, you prove to yourself and the world that resilience is the greatest strength of all. The lesson for life. What is the lesson that 7 verses 300 truly teaches us? It's not just about fighting, not just about odds. It's about how life itself works. Life is not fair. Life is not balanced. Life will never hand you equal numbers. Sometimes you will stand as one against hundreds. Sometimes you will have less money, fewer friends, fewer opportunities. But the lesson is this: quality, focus, and courage will always outweigh quantity. Think about it. How many friends do you really need? Hundreds of names on social media, or just a few who would stand with you in the storm? Isn't it true that 2 or 3 loyal companions can give you more strength than 300 who vanish when trouble arrives? That's life's lesson. Numbers deceive, but loyalty, character, and courage reveal the truth. Education shows the same principle. In a class of 300, not everyone succeeds. Why? Because it's not about how many sit in the room. It's about who focuses, who prepares, who sacrifices distractions for discipline. A single student, dedicated and consistent, will shine brighter than hundreds who drift without direction. The lesson is clear. Life rewards focus, not crowd size. Look at business. There may be 300 companies chasing the same dream, but only a handful succeed. Why? Because success is not about how many enter the race. It's about who runs smarter, harder, and with greater vision. One business with clarity and courage will rise above hundreds with confusion and fear. Isn't that the same lesson repeated? Quality beats quantity every time. Even in personal growth, the same truth applies. You don't need 300 goals, 300 habits, 300 dreams. You need a few that truly matter, and you need the courage to pursue them relentlessly. Scatter your energy into hundreds of directions and you achieve nothing. Focus it into one burning purpose and you achieve greatness. That's the life lesson. Depth, not breadth, creates power. Psychology explains this too. The brain cannot give equal focus to hundreds of tasks. It thrives when energy is narrowed, when attention is sharp. Multitasking scatters, but concentration multiplies. Isn't that exactly what resilience, mindset, and unity all point to? That life is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters with all your strength. History screams this lesson over and over. Just think, revolutions are not started by 300 million people at once. They begin with a few voices, determined and unshakable, who refuse to be ignored. Civil rights movements, scientific breakthroughs, spiritual awakenings, always the work of a few who carried courage beyond measure. The masses followed later. The lesson? Never underestimate the few with fire. They can change the destiny of the many. And what about nature? Look at seeds. A tree does not grow because you throw 300 seeds carelessly on the ground. It grows because one seed falls in the right soil with the right focus of care and finds the courage to push through the darkness. One seed with persistence creates an entire forest. That is life's way of teaching you. Focus, quality, and courage matter more than numbers. The lesson also applies to time. We all have 24 hours, but what matters is not how many hours, it's how you use them. Some waste hundreds of hours in distraction, while others use a few focused hours to master a skill, build a business, write a book. Isn't that proof that life values quality over quantity? And what about failure? You don't need to succeed 300 times. You just need to succeed once, with all your heart, after learning from failure. Success is not counted by attempts, but by the courage to rise until you achieve it. One victory can erase hundreds of defeats. One breakthrough can silence hundreds of doubts. That's the lesson life keeps whispering. Keep going, because one moment of courage can outweigh countless moments of struggle. Even relationships teach this. You don't need 300 people to validate you. You need the courage to value yourself and the quality of one or two true connections. Chasing crowds leaves you empty, but nurturing depth fills you with strength. The lesson is simple. Quantity is noise, quality is music. Which one do you want to live with? Now think of those 7 men again. Outnumbered, overwhelmed, surrounded, yet they stand tall because they know life is not about numbers, it's about what you do with what you have. If you have courage, if you have focus, if you have unity, then you have enough. That is the lesson you must carry into every exam, every business, every dream, every struggle. You already have enough if you choose to give your best. Life will always throw 300s at you, 300 problems, 300 critics, 300 obstacles, but you don't need 300 weapons to fight back. You just need a few strong ones: faith, focus, resilience, strategy. The lesson is that strength is not about matching numbers, it's about maximizing what you already carry inside. So every time you feel small, remember this life lesson. You don't need to be the largest, the richest, the strongest, or the most popular. You just need the courage to keep going, the focus to stay sharp, and the quality of effort that never dies. Because in the end, life does not reward the many, it rewards the few who give everything.